Where'll you be going?
Texas?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Go on, make it happen.
And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome from the heart of Dripping Springs. We are Mallet and Michelle, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallet.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
First of all, I want to thank our sponsors, M. Elliott Studio, Capital Farm Credit,
Nomic Power Solutions, and
Mallet
Mallet
Integrity
Integrity Team, and our unofficial sponsor, Pig
Pen Barbecue.
We'll be there.
Yes, I was going to say, we'll be there just shortly.
Oh my gosh, do they not have the bestest, mostest delicious fish tacos? Like
Those fish tacos they have on Friday are awesome.
they're so good.
But if you want to go get the fish taco plate, bring two of you because it's a lot of food.
A lot of food for $10 or $12.
Oh, my mouth just started watering talking about that. Hey, our guest today,
Clay Barton with First Baptist
First
Church.
Baptist Church of Dripping Springs.
I think it's official. I think almost every pastor in Dripping Springs married one of my kids. It was
I think that's true. Yeah. And David Skinner, who used to be at the Methodist Church, married Holly and I.
Yes, David Skinner. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. He's doing well. He's in Abilene.
Abilene, far,
Yeah.
far away.
You have a story about Baptists, I think.
Oh my gosh, are we starting with me? I thought I was going to have a little bit of reprieve before I started.
No,
Okay.
Jumping right in, Michelle.
Well,
Here we go.
congratulations. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of deep dive a little bit into the Baptist religion and how it was founded and why and kind of what we believe. I grew up Southern Baptist. Well, I like to say I grew up kind of half Southern Baptist and half Catholic because I grew up down in the valley. So I would go to catechism class just for fun because all my friends were going.
That's where your friends were.
Yeah. But did you have like a denomination that you grew up with that you kind of associated
Kind
with?
of grew up non-denominationally.
But see, that wasn't even a thing in the 70s and 80s, right?
We just kind of went to church wherever we felt like going to church.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we moved here, we went to the Methodist church, and we did that for a while. But I wouldn't really say I was a Methodist. Just it was good church for us.
Yeah.
When my kids were growing up.
Well, there's many thoughts of discussion about how the Baptist religion, I guess, or denomination was founded. But one of them I kept consistently going back to, but it was that it was founded by John Smith in Amsterdam in 1609. And he came from a minister from the Church of England. But then in 1638, it was brought here to the then uncolonized United States in Rhode Island.
Who would that have been? What group of people would that have been in the 1600s?
I'm sure they came from England. They're
And when did the Pilgrims come? I'm sorry, I took you off track. Okay, just forget I said that.
Was it in
The 1600s, I guess.
in 1600s? Well, yeah. The first Baptist church was established in England in 1612. So
Okay.
the first Baptist church. About 50 million Americans profess their faith as Baptist, or 16% of the population, which I thought was
That's
pretty
got to
big.
be one of the highest.
It is,
if not the highest.
There's a couple of sub denominations, like the American Baptist, and there's like the New Baptist, but the largest is the Southern Baptist. There's also several Baptist conventions that happen. Again, the Southern Baptist Convention. The main belief of being Baptist in the Church of Baptist is the church is baptism.
So
Baptism
you get baptized to be part of the church.
So just to really lay it down, baptism really kind of only happens after someone has professed Christ as their Lord and Savior.
Okay.
So it's not like in the Catholic religion or some of the other religions where they're baptizing children. In the Baptist religion, it is full immersion. So it's not a sprinkle, it's full immersion. Now,
So you become a part of the Catholic Church when you're a baby and they sprinkle water on you, then you're part of the church.
So in one of the churches that I went to when my kids were little was Riverbend Church, and it was originally a Baptist church, but my kids were, quote, baptized but they called it more of a dedication. It was more of a dedication to the church. But it's also a public expression of your faith. And the Baptists also believe that the Bible is the authority. It's biblical, full authority. Historians believe that the Baptist belief of religious freedom was a huge influence on the First Amendment of the Constitution, which is, freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. So the Baptists have always kind of had a huge influence in American politics and American...
And probably still do.
They really do. I think, when you were a kid, did you ever listen to Billy Graham? Mm-hmm. Boy, what an amazing person.
Was he a Baptist preacher?
So I'm not going to say it.
You today
I'm
with
not
my
going to say.
questions.
I'm not going to say it with authority, but I believe he was. He was an evangelistic preacher, Baptist preacher. I don't know if he was part of the Southern Baptist Convention or not, but I just remember listening to Reverend Billy Graham, and he sat with presidents, and his. Wow, he was an amazing person.
He was a very wise man.
I
understood a lot about what was going on in the current culture and spoke to that.
Well, he wasn't afraid to talk about it either, right? And I think that's why people resonate with Clay, and it's going to be interesting to hear Clay's stories, because Clay original path wasn't, from my understanding, wasn't to be a pastor. He came
According
from
to
the
his
corporate
bio,
world.
He was a pretty high-powered attorney.
Yeah,
in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, so
trial attorney in the oil and gas industry. So, yeah, I'm excited about him. I think he's going to have some really cool stuff to talk about. So we'll get him in here in a couple minutes. I have a story kind of piggybacking on that. Hometown Missions, which was originally a bunch of the people from different churches in town all got together and basically talked about how could we help some of the people in our town. And this group started and it evolved over a couple of years and then became Hometown Missions. Well, they just this past weekend, which would be by the time this comes out, the weekend before this, they just finished their Home in a Month, where they built a home in Dripping Springs. Hundreds of volunteers turned out to do this. Built a brand new home for the Salazar family, a family of 4, over there off of Creek Road. Finished the house completely and got them moved in. New furniture. Remember, we went by there and there was a house from the 50s and it had a bunch of issues. Well, they tore that down. People came together and built them a brand new house.
That's
and
what
they're living in
community's
there.
about.
I know, isn't that great? Chuck Lamond, who's one of my greatest friends, who was on episode 19, he came on and talked about Hometown Missions, but he was quoted, "We handed them some keys to a fully furnished, all appliances installed, completely air-conditioned, beautiful home with no strings attached," said Hometown Missions Vice President Chuck Lamont.
Very different than some of the other organizations where there is a commitment, a financial commitment and whatnot.
Yeah, there was no strings attached on this.
How does the city handle the taxes on that? I'm going to stump you. How do they?
So the part of what Hometown Missions does is, because it is going to raise their taxes because the value of the house is a little more, they give them sort of coaching on how to make better financial choices to prepare for that, paying the taxes in the future. But they don't have a house payment or anything, unless they're still paying on the land, which I don't think they are. So they're going to have to be prepared for that, put a little bit of money aside for the taxes.
Yeah.
But man, what a great thing
I know
that they've done.
That is pretty amazing here at Dripping Springs. We all come together. People complain a lot that how Dripping Springs is growing and we're not like what we used to be. But, when it all comes down to it, it's neighbor helping neighbor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's actually probably the thing that makes this town the most special is that people turn out in droves to help people when there's a need.
Remember years ago, was it, like 7-10 years ago, whenever that big Memorial Day flood happened? And I just remember, even though it happened in Wimberley, I remember so many people in Dripping Springs coming together for our neighbors next door. I think we need to remember that sometimes, that, you can be griping about the 290 or TxDOT, whatever's coming.
Yeah. What's been funny to me over the years? we all gripe about who should be the president and who should have been convicted of what, and is the justice system corrupt? Blah 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 blah. But as soon as there is any kind of a thing, remember 9/11? This country pulled together. I mean, after a little bit, we were ripped apart into other places, into different groups again. But whenever there's a need, the political lines, the religious beliefs, they all blur and everybody just comes together and helps out. And I think that's the coolest thing. So sometimes when things are really hard, it's the best thing for the community and to be able to come together.
Yeah.
So this was that hometown missions thing was really cool. And so many people came out. I mean, they're electricians and people painted and plumbers, and people donated their time, and companies donated goods and services, and a really, really cool thing that they do.
So if you're looking to donate, go to Hometown Missions, right?
Hometownmissions.org. Yep. Yeah. And they've got a place you can donate, or a place that you can sign up to volunteer. So.
Well, you're going to go to your next story?
I'm going to go to my next story, which was, I was running a couple weeks ago, and do we need to take a break? Something's going on with you. All right, we're back. Michelle had a major medical malfunction there. Something was poking her in the eye. But I started to say, I was out running a couple weeks ago, and I've seen this, but I saw this Jeep sitting on the corner, and it had all these rubber ducks on the dash. And I said to myself, I've seen that, but then it made me start to think about how often I see it. And so I've been driving around town or running around town. Now I'm paying attention. About 3 out of 4 Jeeps that I pass have at least 1 or 2 rubber duckies on their dash.
That just looks like clutter to me.
Well, yeah, me too. But some of them have. I saw one must have had 25 little different rubber ducks on their dash. Not just, a little rubber duck that everybody, they're pink and they're different colors and they're doing different things. Well, I started wondering, how did that craze get started? And I found a story. This woman back in 2020, her name is Allison Parliament. They call her the Mother Ducker. So in 2020, her and her partner, she came up with this game. She bought a bunch of little rubber duckies, and she was just going to hide them around the house so that her partner discovered them, and it would be just sort of a little hide and seek kind of thing and be kind of fun. And she parked in this parking lot, and there was this really cool Jeep. She had just bought her first Jeep, 2018. I can't remember, CJ7 or something. And she saw this really cool Jeep, is all jacked up, fancy wheels, and she wanted to leave the guy or gal a note saying, "Hey, I really like your Jeep." So she didn't have any papers, so she wrote on this note that, "Hey, I like your Jeep. Have a great day." And I wrote on this duck and left it on the guy's dash, left it, sitting up there. And that started a trend.
I could have sworn it had happened. It was way before that.
It was 2020.
4 years ago?
It was 2020. Yep. It was right during the pandemic. Yeah. And so she was just thinking, I'll spread some good cheer. Apparently that went viral. The guy posted a picture and people started paying attention. Now it's a huge trend. There's thousands and thousands of these ducks being traded at these Jeep rallies. And she now runs a Facebook page with 76,000 members that is just about Jeep ducks.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's become a little bit of a celebrity. She gets invited to all these Jeep rallies, and they still call her the Mother Ducker. She said that there are some people that are critics of it. You're still having a hard time with your eye.
My eye, I'm just going to take my eye out.
Yeah. But she has some people that are critics, which don't you always get these that say that rubber ducks are bad for the environment and we shouldn't be making rubber ducks and leaving them everywhere. But it seems to me like it brings a lot of joy to people, and I think it's cool.
Didn't they used to do like a big rubber duck dump in Town Lake?
Was that Town Lake? I don't remember.
Didn't it?
I've seen that, but I don't think it's down lake.
I thought they used to do it. I think
Is
I
it
could have
Chicago?
sworn.
Is that river?
No,
in
I thought
Chicago?
that they did. Somebody did it because I remember taking the kids to go do that, or like maybe somebody just tried to do it one year when
Maybe,
the kids
yeah.
happened to be little.
Yeah.
But they dump them all in there. But yeah, that is cute too.
Well, so now when you see people driving around town with those rubber duckies on their Jeep dash, you know what that's all about.
They're not
Allison Parliament, the mother ducker.
They're not about pegging other people in the head when they're not going.
Might be. Little soft rubber ducky.
I'm going to start another trend for sure. Hey, I asked you if you knew about Rockwall, Texas, or Rockwall County up near Dallas area.
I don't think I know anything about that.
Okay, so you know me and my investigative journalism.
Stalker, you mean?
TikTok. Yeah, stalking and TikTok. By the way, did you see that Trump joined TikTok?
And got 1 million followers in like 24 hours.
Like as of this morning, he has something like 5 million followers.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. Even
Just curious.
Huh?
How many does Joe Biden have after how many years he's been on TikTok? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't follow Joe Biden because I just
I don't follow him either, but I bet that would be an interesting.
You don't
thing
even
to
have
see.
a TikTok.
I
So
don't have TikTok. I do have
so
Instagram.
there it is. Okay, so anyways, I ran across this History Channel thing. I do follow things, not just Real Housewives of Orange County. I do follow like historical stuff.
Okay.
So they were talking
Historical stuff you think could be fake
Well,
news.
no, I did but I did a deeper dive into this about Rockwall. And in the 1950s, farmers were digging a well and they found this weird limestoney, quartzy wall. It's 7 stories deep and it goes into the ground. And it surrounds, for the most part, what they can see. It surrounds the city. Now, it's really hard to determine where it begins and where it ends because a lot of the buildings in Rockwall, the citizens were digging up these pieces of wall and putting them on buildings. So
They think this is a man-made wall?
So
I see it.
it is back and forth, right? It's been debated for over 160 years since it was discovered what it is. And of course, it was stumbled upon by accident, right? But geologists stated that this is is what they're calling merely formations that have dried and hardened. But this is a couple of geologists. But the sandstone has fractured in a way, as you can see. It actually looks like bricks, but there are areas that they have found steps, archways. They even found like a metal ring or a disc.
Mix, because I can see there's this first picture looks to me like just normal striations in limestone. That second picture though, that's definitely a man-made wall, but I don't know if those two are the same thing.
Well, so the way they were looking at them, some of them. So I'm just showing a picture online. If some of them are like perfectly straight and they're saying, no, this couldn't be.
That one there in the middle up at the top looks to me like that was definitely man-made, but that doesn't look dug out of the ground either.
I think apparently downtown, I don't know if there's not a picture of it, but apparently downtown, I guess it's in front of City Hall or something. Oh, there's that iron piece. They took pieces of it and they recreated it in the front.
Okay.
So some of the citizens of Rockwall are saying that there's a couple of theories. Either it's prehistoric natives, aliens. Of course, there's aliens. But here's one of the most interesting theories that I've heard. I went to Pompeii this last October. That is super cool.
Yeah.
They say that it could have been a super volcanic eruption and it covered everything, covered the ruins, that this was from old natives or whatever. But another interesting tidbit about Rockwall, it is the wealthiest county in Texas.
Because of all the people that come there to see the alien wall.
I guess so. Maybe they charge. Maybe charge for
kidding.
it. Well, just like Dripping Springs actually has a spring, right?
I don't know. Is there any other? It would be interesting to know. Is there any other place in Texas where they have this kind of if it's architecture, quote unquote. I mean,
I don't know.
yeah,
I didn't.
some of that is definitely man.
Yeah, I'm just Google imaging some of these, but yeah, it is really kind of cool. And some of the people were saying, oh my gosh, I've lived in Rockwall my whole life and I didn't know this. I was like, how did you not know this? Are you not paying attention?
I know.
The name of your city is Rockwall.
Be like, I wonder where they got the name Dripping Springs.
Yeah, I wonder
maybe it's
where
that Dripping Springs over there off of Mercer Street.
Maybe.
I got a serious story that at first I started reading it and I thought it was kind of interesting, but the more I read about it, the more I thought it was something we should talk about. And it is a man was befriended by supposedly a 75-year-old man was befriended by supposedly a 37-year-old Chinese woman on LinkedIn. So he's a 75-year-old professional. Mm-hmm. They didn't say his name and they didn't tell a whole lot of details about him, but the Wall Street Journal did this in-depth story about this guy. And over the course of a pretty short period of time, about a month, this supposed 37-year-old woman, which more than likely was maybe not even a woman. It's
probably a 17-year-old boy living in the Congo.
It's actually a pretty popular scam, and there are whole places in foreign countries set up just to do this. And they look for older men and women who appear to be lonely, and they connect with them, and they offer they say things like, this woman said to him, I'm at a point in my life where I don't care about looks or money or anything. I just want true love. And this guy, he had been in a 40-year relationship, but the relationship wasn't very good. And he was lonely, kind of maybe approaching retirement. And she offered that she was going to give him true love and he was going to spend the rest of his life with her. They were going to buy an RV and travel around the world. And of course, through this, he started talking. She appeared to be very wealthy. She was always sending him pictures of her at fancy restaurants and whatever.
He was being catfished.
Catfished is just scammed. It's actually it's actually called pig butchering, when a scammer seduces them online, builds trust, and then convinces them to put money into a bogus investment. So she appeared to be very wealthy. She said, well, my uncle, he's very wealthy. He owns this, it's FT something investments. And if you put $1,500 in there, I think I can double your money. So he put $1,500 into this account, and it looks like a regular old account. And within a couple of days, it's worth $3,000. He was still a little bit cautious. So he tried just for grins, tried to take out $100. Took a couple of days, but they gave him his $100 back. So doubled his investment in a few days. And she said, hey, I have this insider thing. And if you put $25,000 in, we can double it. And it went on like that. And his portfolio, he eventually ended up putting over $700,000 into this account. And it looked like a regular investment account. And it appeared to be worth about $1.5 million, but the money was gone. She scammed him out of everything. And at the end of all that, she said, there's a lock on your account. In order for you to get your money back, you'll need to place an additional deposit. And when you do that, then they'll release the money to you. And she said, look, I really want you to get your money back. It was like $300,000. She said, I'll pay $150,000, you pay $150,000. He took out a mortgage on his house. He took out a personal loan and sent that money to that account. And then she just disappeared.
Ghosted him.
Yeah. And I think it's very sad. And the reason that I want a couple things. Be cautious, people. If it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. There's just, you're not going to find true love on LinkedIn, you know?
On LinkedIn, that's not exactly where I would think to go to a love match would be on LinkedIn.
The second thing is, if you meet somebody online and they say, hey, let's take our conversation over to WhatsApp, that should be a big red flag right there. And that was the first thing she did.
I just can't believe people are still falling for this. I saw something the other day about cashier at CVS, she noticed that the week before, this older lady had come in and was buying 3 $500 gift cards. And so she started recording this second time, and she goes, "You are being scammed."
Yep.
"No, I'm not. No,
Yep.
I'm not." And she was like, "Yes, I'm not going to sell you the gift cards." And so this woman she's reaching out to people.
Yep.
Look, when you see elderly people
Yep.
that are buying these gift cards, don't. But I could see what my grandmother at that age, she probably would have fallen for something like that.
So these are smart people. This guy's a professional. He's not some, just
Yahoo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yahoo living in a swamp somewhere. And when he was taking all the money out of his bank and his investment portfolio, both the manager of his bank and his investment portfolio manager said, "You are being scammed. Do not give her any more
Then
money."
you know what? He
And-
deserved it.
Well,
I'm sorry.
no,
No.
Yeah.
You're obviously not that smart.
Loneliness set that up, and
then
and they took advantage.
you
of
get what
that.
you get and don't throw a
I
fit.
know. But if you have friends or family and they are saying to you, "Hey, I met this woman online," or "I met this guy online," and they talk anything about trading money, try to intervene, because there's a good chance they're being scammed, and it happens way more often than you
Well,
think.
yeah. So the first part of the story is the guy was in a 40-year relationship and wasn't happy. Okay, well, why weren't you happy? So now you're going to put all this money in, and you're chasing something that's not real. It's not
and they
tangible.
reel you in. It's like, well, if you give just a little bit more. So that she started out with $1,500. She was probably really nervous, like, whoa, it's $1,500. But you
I'm
get
very
into
skeptic.
it, and that's the way life is, though. You're like, in our real estate business, sometimes you have a bad transaction and you've invested $5,000 in it with staging or whatever, and that it's not going to work out, but you hang on to it because it might come back around, and that's what he was doing. But
I see the other side of it. I can hear what you're saying, but look, he's not too old to not know better. He's old enough to know better. He had $700,000 in investment, so he should have listened to the people and the powers that be. And at some point, you got to take personal responsibility. You did it to yourself.
I still feel bad.
In what world are you going to double your money?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I feel bad for the guy. Apparently, he has absolutely nothing now, and he has mortgages and he has personal notes, and so just be aware. There are people out there that are.
Don't be stupid.
Yeah, well, and I get on Instagram, I get DMs almost every day from somebody that they say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And it's always some.
I do too, and I block them.
Yeah, 30-year-old something woman, and I know it's a scam. I know it is a scam.
Yeah,
and I just block them.
I do too, or somebody that wants you to be some ambassador for something. I get those
all the time.
every single day. But just if anybody out there just wants to throw me $700,000, I will not double your money. I will take it with a smile.
I will just go buy my yacht and be gone.
That's right. Can I buy a yacht at
I don't think you can buy
$700,000?
a
No,
yacht
I
for
can't buy it.
$700,000.
I could.
You can sure buy a Porsche 911 GT3 RS though.
Why would I do that?
For your boss.
No,
Okay.
No more.
Well, let's take a little break and get Pastor Clay Barton in here. What do you think?
I'm ready for it. Are you tired of being left in the dark when the power goes out? Say goodbye to blackouts with Nomic Power Solutions.
As your full-service Generac dealer, they offer individually designed backup power solutions.
From start to finish, they've got you covered.
Nomic Power Solutions, keeping you powered up.
Call or text 512-387-4232 or visit nomicpower.com. Follow on Instagram at Nomic Power for updates. Nomic Power Solutions.
Protect your home, protect your family, stay ready. Proudly sponsored by
At Capital Farm Credit, they understand that owning land is more than just a transaction. It's a legacy, a future, and a place to call your own.
For generations, Capital Farm Credit has been the trusted lending partner for land loans, farmers, ranchers, and rural dreamers just like you.
Their personalized loan solutions cater to your unique needs, making the journey to land ownership smoother than ever.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit capitalfarmcredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender.
Interior design should be an investment in your life and home. Let M. Elliott Studio transform your space, where interior design meets excellence in Central Texas.
Beyond just selecting colors and furnishings, team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, is a trained and licensed interior designer.
With her knowledge of architectural principles, building codes, space planning, and design theory, her team will work with you to understand your needs and lifestyle.
From concept to completion, M. Elliott Studio is committed to enhancing your space with a timeless and classic style.
Ready to redefine your space?
melliottstudio.com, 512-781-0224.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallet Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at malletintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
And we're back here with Pastor Clay Barton with the First Baptist Church of Dripping Springs. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be
welcome,
here.
Clay. I'm glad you're here. It's funny, I've seen you at Pigpen at least a dozen times, and that's the first time we've ever had a real conversation.
A dozen?
25 times.
I think put a 1 in front of that 25 times. I think that's the only place you eat in this town now.
I like to say every time I see Steve, you're in a real rut. You need to break out of this rut and try someplace different. But
yeah, it's actually worse than you think, Clay. I go there probably twice a week, and I get the exact same thing every time I'm there.
So much
it's a
so,
pretty big rut.
they don't even call him by his name. They don't know his name. They just know him as Chicken Fajita.
he's the chicken fajita
Yeah,
guy.
that's all they know him
Well, you
as.
know what? I would say this, never apologize for that. There's a barbecue joint in Austin, Bert's Barbecue. Been around forever, and there used to be one right by the UT campus. I started eating there in 1977.
Oh, geez.
I've had one dish. They have a Frito pie, and I used to say add 50 cents of sausage, and that was like half a sausage. Like nowadays, it's a slice. But people have asked me, like, "What's your chicken like?" I don't know. Well, how are the ribs?
I know is a
I don't
Frito
know.
pie is
I've
really
had a
good.
Frito pie with 50 cents of sausage every time I go there.
Are they still there?
Well, that store burned up and literally burned and disappeared, but they have a Northwest Austin store.
It was all
Mesa.
that sausage.
Yeah.
That's what, that's what happened.
Yeah, that little thing torched.
You are a native Austinite?
Basically,
Yeah.
1973, 74. I was a fourth grader. So started in the panhandle of Texas, little bitty small town north of Amarillo named Borger, Texas.
Never heard of it.
No, most folks haven't, about 45 miles north of Amarillo. But my dad had been a state legislator when I was a little boy from the panhandle, and Austin drew him back. Lobbying jobs drew him back. So I went to 3 elementary schools in those 5 years of schooling, but 4th and 5th grade was Austin, and ever since. So what is that math? 74 to today, 26, and
That's a long time.
That's a
Clay.
long time.
that's a long time. That's 50
That's
years.
decades.
Yeah. Other than my college years, I went away for college and law school. But yeah, Austin since 73, December of 73, January 74.
How'd you end up in Dripping Springs?
Sharon told him what to do.
Well,
As happens in many of our lives.
this one was a little
many
bit
men's
different.
lives.
I was on staff at Bannockburn Baptist Church, large South Austin church, so literally the church that I grew up in. I later became a staff member of that church. It had opened up a Dripping Springs campus about 9 months before me, and the church came to me and said, "Hey, would you take over as the campus pastor of the Bannockburn Dripping Springs campus?"
Yeah.
I'd been in Austin since the early 70s, raised my boys there, fully immersed in all things Austin. But I just had a real strong conviction that I can't lead and pastor a group of people in Dripping Springs while I live in Southwest Austin.
Yeah.
Like I've got to move, I've got to burn the boats, so to speak, and get fully immersed in the community. Grocery shop at the same grocery store, pick up or dry cleaning at the same dry cleaners. I cannot, be a remote pastor. So it was 10 years ago, 10 years ago this month.
Wow, has it been that
10
long?
years ago. That was 2014.
Wait a minute.
That I bought a house out here.
Oh, that you bought the house. Because that's when I met Clay, was when he came to Bannockburn, because I was out at Bannockburn. But,
Yeah.
Wow.
So June my youngest son was graduating from high school, and he basically said, please don't make me move, 2 months into the last months of my senior year in high school. So he graduated late May, early June. We unpacked our boxes right back behind the football stadium and have been there ever since.
Oh, same place.
Yeah, one house.
That's great. I'm going to interrupt you for a sec. I'm going to tie your arm behind your back if you don't stop banging on the table.
I move a lot when I talk.
Time, man. That's okay. It's okay.
He's a Baptist preacher. You're lucky.
Yeah. But your career has not always been in ministry. You were in the oil and gas. We were an attorney in the oil and gas industry. Is that?
Yeah. So
how long did you do that?
1989 to 2000, and basically 20 years.
Okay.
So Baylor undergraduate, Baylor Law School, straight to Austin to a downtown firm to do commercial litigation. I didn't care anything about oil and gas. I knew about it, but it turns out I got sucked into a couple of really big cases. Exxon was one of our main clients. Wow. And next thing I know, years pass, and I'm all of a sudden like got some specialty in oil and gas litigation. So it was really, really boring stuff, counting litigation, really technical engineering fights. I mean, none of it would ever make a good TV or movie show. But I did that for 20 years before I went full-time into ministry.
Were you burned out on that when you went into ministry? No,
I wouldn't call it burnout, although about 3 or 4 years prior, so maybe year 15 or 16, I do remember looking up and thinking, I've kind of done everything. Like I've been to the highest
courts. You've grown as much as you can grow in this situation.
And that's not a bad thing, but I do remember having that moment of thinking, Lord, I've experienced just about everything that you could experience in the trial world. Now it's just a matter of repetition. Of it would be my 4th or 5th or 6th time to go do something. So I like to say my waters got stirred. I started getting restless. It wasn't a burnout. I could have done it for another 20 years. Yeah. A great law firm, great people like you with your one restaurant, with your one meal. I had one law firm, one secretary.
Yeah.
I had one secretary for the whole 20 years there. Yeah. So I wasn't going to leave to go to another law firm. It was if something was going to change, it was going to be what I really wanted to do, which was minister to families and serve moms and dads and their kids.
Was that just a conscious decision, or was it an opportunity that was presented to you and you're like, maybe I want to explore this a little bit more?
Little both. Several years prior to making the jump, my wife and I were having, obviously private conversations where I'm like, I don't know that I'm going to be doing this another 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. Well, what are we going to do? I don't know. I know what it kind of would feel like in terms of ministry. I'd always been very active in my church as a Bible study teacher, as a deacon, these things. And that never felt like work. I remember joking around saying, I'd do that for free. I was doing it for free if they would kind of let me. The law stuff I did because they paid me. Right. It was work. And I wouldn't have done it for free, although I did obviously represent people at times for no charge. But that felt like climbing a really steep mountain. Ministry life felt like the wind was at my back and I was going downhill the whole time.
Did you have to go back to school?
So I did not finish, but I did do seminary training, Dallas Theological Seminary.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The then senior pastor of Bannockburn, Ryan Rush, is one of my,
What an amazing
He's a hero of mine and also a really good friend of mine. And we had some long conversations. I'm like, look, I've already got a doctorate degree, but it's in law. That didn't help me a bunch in this. And he was very encouraging to say, let's go get some studies under your belt, but this is a new world. I don't need you to go disappear for 3 years and get a divinity degree, then jump back into the ministry. Life is short and people are in need.
Ooh, that's big. That's true. Yeah.
And the world has also changed with online education. And I didn't have to sell my house and move to some seminary location.
I think that made you more relatable too, because here you came into this little kind of hodgepodgey church up on the hill, where all of us, we put blood, sweat, and tears into building the stage and the lights and painting and everything else. And at Bannockburn, at the Bannockburn Dripping Springs, and you kind of came in and you came from the corporate world, and you were ready and willing to get your hands dirty, like with the rest of us.
You know what? Michelle, as you say that, it makes me think back to doing so much work for Exxon, I used to joke about this. How come God saw fit to put oil and gas in the most forsaken places? It's not anywhere pretty except Alaska, but middle of nowhere, West Texas, middle of nowhere, Southwest and South Texas. I spent a ton of time working with just everyday Texans. The guys that might have been my client were high school dropouts who were, technicians, or they were, oil field workers, or their bosses were just a couple of steps removed from that. And so even though it was, quote, a law practice, I spent much less time in the boardrooms and a lot more times
in the field,
in mobile homes that were out in the middle of nowhere, where the gas field superintendent officed. And these were just regular people. So that always kept me kind of grounded and relatively normal.
Yeah.
Relatively.
And Sharon.
Yes.
And Sharon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you were brought out here for Bannockburn, and then at some point you became the pastor of First Baptist Church.
Yeah. Winter of 2018, minding my own business. I literally did not even know that there was a vacancy at First Baptist Church. Drove by it every day, multiple times a day, but just, it's not that I had anything negative to say about the place. It just
wasn't
matter
even on your radar.
Yeah, I'm on staff at Bannockburn. I got plenty of stuff to do. And I got a call from a mutual friend who said, there is an opening. Would you pray and be willing to submit your name as a possible candidate to become the senior pastor? To which I said, well, no, I'm not going to do that without first talking to my boss, the senior pastor. And this friend said, well, I've already done that. And he says, it's okay.
Well, thank you very much.
To his credit, he was not going to call me and kind of stir up my waters without first getting the green light from Bannockburn's senior pastor, who was a great guy at that time, Pastor Key. And so in conversations with him, and obviously with my wife, we just kind of looked up and said, you know what, let's at least take a step in that direction. And next thing you know, January 1 of 2019, I was the new senior pastor of at that time, 148-year-old church. I was
going to say, how hard was it to kind of jump into a very established, well-known church in the heart of a little, a little town? Yeah.
In some ways, it was easier than I anticipated because of great people doing great stuff. In other ways, it was hard because it's literally a room full of new faces and people. And like it's not hard enough to do your job, but to begin to, my bias and tendency is toward being much more pastoral than academic, or much more pastoral than, corporate CEO type. And so knowing people's names and knowing, whose child goes with who, and that was actually, and knowing just kind of the backstory. It's probably not a good Baptist preacher analogy, but it's like showing up to a poker game 4 hours in. And there's all these backstories and inside jokes and little phrases that people use. And you look around and go, I don't really know what you're talking about.
It's going to take some time.
Yeah.
That church burned down. Was it 2006?
2007.
Yeah. I remember I was at another real estate office just down the road, like 100 yards west of there, and watched it burn.
Terrible day.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I talked to someone just recently, another pastor here in town that I'm friends with, that had been teaching. I think at that time, First Baptist Church had, whether it was, I don't remember the name of the private school, but there was a little private school operation going. And he was essentially an adjunct teacher, and he had forgotten something. And he ran back up to the church campus to pick up his grade book or something of that sort. And he literally was the first, he beat the fire department here. Stood in the parking lot and watched it burn late one afternoon.
Yeah, it was.
In the middle of the day.
The fire trucks, and I think this is how it goes because, memories, but the fire trucks hooked up to that fire hydrant over by Danny's at Central Garage, and it didn't have enough water pressure for them to pump water onto the building. So they basically just cordoned it off and let it burn. I don't think they got it. I think it burned itself out more than they put it out.
How much do you think the church will be affected by the TxDOT road expansion? And are you guys actively involved in those meetings and stuff?
Yeah. Here's the good news. As it currently is situated, the massive part of the project is from 12 to the Wyatt Oak Hill.
Right.
From 12 headed toward Roger Hanks Parkway, it's a much, much smaller scale, still a big deal. And as the plans are currently designed, if you drive by our campus, you'll see there's some space in between the pavement and our marquee sign. We've got our little old-fashioned marquee sign. They're not going to take even that marquee sign. It would stop short of that. So the first question when it first hit the radar was, is this an existential life or death? Are they going to try to take away our sanctuary?
Yes.
And the answer is no.
Okay.
As it now sits, the answer is no. The building that was rebuilt up out of the ashes of that fire and reopened in, I think, 2010, that will be untouched. Now, we'll have cars going about 10 yards from us. Traffic, noise. It does look like they'll take some of our parking on both the Pigpen side of our campus and on the Walgreens side of our campus.
Yeah.
So we'll end up losing some space, some very, very valuable space, but it doesn't appear to be the life and death like your business is going, like others are having to.
I don't remember which one it was, but on their official announcement, they said between Oak Hill and Dripping Springs, there was 2 churches were going to be
I think
shut
one
down,
one of them is closer towards Oak Hill. That was one of the ones that was, and I think
I was trying to figure out which
obviously
ones
not Mount Olive either. They're going to lose a lot of that little
some
front
of their
land
space. Yeah, I saw that same thing, Steve, and I got a call in to TxDOT as fast as I could, got to the right person, and said, this is a real simple conversation to have. Who are those churches? Is it me?
Yeah.
And I hate to sound like this, but is it me or is it somebody else? And they very quickly, it's like, no, that's not First Baptist. Yes, we're going to take some of your land, but not your entire kind of campus. Because I thought at that moment, how things could change. This place burned in 2007.
Yeah.
Now
That'd be very controversial because I remember when I moved here, you coming from Austin, you crest the hill by the water tower and you could see the bell tower there of the church.
I was going to say.
It's very... It's so iconic.
It really is.
Little Texas town with the oak trees.
Dripping wouldn't be dripping without the bells ringing at noon.
Yeah, exactly.
The Baptist church.
It's been such a beautiful thing. Small world story going back to my transition to this church campus. We had lived out here for about 4 years as a Bannockburn pastor. In those 4 years, somebody, my wife could tell you who it was, gave her a little original piece of artwork, which was a painting of the First Baptist Church bell tower and the little cross up on there.
Yeah.
Just as this iconic thing, having no idea that
one day that
4
would be
years
your
later,
home.
that's my home church.
Wow.
So we have that in our washroom. I think it's there in the washroom or the mudroom.
Yeah.
It's up on the
Big
wall right
part
now.
of Dripping Springs history.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I want to talk to you about what it's like to be head pastor of a church in this day and age. It seems like the country's kind of split now or split into multiple groups, and you got different people, different political beliefs, different religious beliefs. And how are you dealing with bringing people together and blurring those lines so that they all pull together in fellowship instead of thinking, well, my neighbor voted for so-and-so or that they support so-and-so? How do you keep everybody together and working together as a church?
Yeah, great question, Steve. Think back to this. January of 19 was my first year as the senior pastor, and I'm going to answer your question. It happened even back in 2019, but come March of 2020, this thing called COVID came.
Yeah.
And you talk about opportunities to disagree and opportunities even for people to be disagreeable as they disagreed. It was a weekly kind of thing. And so really I had a strong conviction even before COVID that what will help unify us is a singular, laser-like focused on Christ. And I hope we have people in our sanctuary that don't vote the same way. I don't want to be a part of a monolithic, singular, we all look alike, think alike, talk alike. There's some elbow room for reasonable people to disagree on things. But rather than focusing on the things that we disagree about, I constantly come back to just that very Jesus-centered focus in church. And then tactically, to answer your question, what I've tried to do since the very, very beginning is it's not a 3-weekend sermon series that's going to move the needle. It's every time we talk. Oh, yeah. Every time I'm talking, I'm saying, you know what, whether you voted for Democrat or Republican, whether you love rock and roll or hardcore Merle Haggard, we've got space and room for all of us here in that we celebrate that diversity without compromising our core values and convictions. But there's a lot of room for us to agree on things.
Yeah.
But it's been a challenge.
I had that question also in the sense that what role do you think the church has in like political discussions or social justice movements that are going on? And I think you answered my question already. It's like if it's centered back on Christ, if we're turning our eyes back to the center here. And one of the things I wrote down was, doesn't it just all come down to morals? Mm-hmm. Is that?
Yeah, and what's the source of those morals?
What is the source of the morals? Yeah.
What is the source of those morals? And so even as I gave that answer, I'm just even now thinking, too, that there's probably not a week go by that at some point in the morning on a Sunday, I don't say, because we hold highly and have a high view of the Word of God, this is what we turn to for the answers that we're looking for. So just last week, I was teaching on purpose. Like, why are we even here? And I don't mean why are we in this room, but why are we even on this planet? Is there a purpose? Or is it just a meaningless, purposeless? Well, where are we going to get that answer? Let's turn to Scripture. So focus, as long as my nose is buried in Scripture, it's amazing how little, in all honesty, over my 5.5 years at First Baptist Dripping Springs, I have not had that much interaction with folks where we're having to argue about COVID or Bush or Trump or Hillary Clinton or Biden or this or that. Those things, they really do begin to fall by the waysides because I think it's Mark Twain that once said, it's not the parts of the Bible that I don't understand that give me problems. It's the parts that I do understand. Ooh. And if we'll work on that, it's funny how these other things kind of take care of themselves and we love each other better. Yeah. We tolerate each other better when we push through the selfishness and the pride. And
the thing for me now that I'm older is I actually like being around people with differing points of view. Yeah. If we can have a civil conversation, that's what seems to be lacking is you can't have a civil conversation. If somebody voted for somebody else, it was state, city, local, national election, tell me why you voted for them. Let me tell you why I voted for the other guy. And, I might learn something from you. You might learn something from me. And we don't seem to be able to do that anymore.
You know what? Back in I'm old enough that old time practice of law was just beginning to fade away as I started as a young lawyer. But stories were legendary of two lawyers just beating each other to death in the courthouse from 8 to 5 on a Tuesday and then walking across the street and having a beer together. Yeah. One of the senior partners of my old law firm, one of the name partners of the law firm, talked about trying a case in East Texas against an opponent that they were just bloodying each other during the work hours. And then on Fridays, they would ride the train together back to Austin and have drinks and have dinner.
And they could
go
keep
home
those
and
two compartmentalized and one didn't bleed into the other.
Yeah,
we seem to have things bleeding all over the place now. You can't. I rode bikes for a guy with a guy for a while, and every once in a while the conversation would go to politics, and I tried really hard to steer away from that. But eventually we couldn't even ride together anymore.
Steve just pushed him into the ditch. He's still over there in the ditch now. Hey, Clay, I have a 2-part question.
Come on.
What does it mean to be Baptist to you? Mm-hmm. And what do you think people nowadays are looking for in religion?
Yeah. What it means to be in Baptist, hundreds of years now that denomination has existed. And one of many things that I love about the denomination, and I'm not an active denominational guy. It's about to happen in Indianapolis in a week from now, the national convention. I won't be there. I've got other stuff I'm doing than being a part of the politics of the denomination. Yeah. But within the denomination's core beliefs, this idea of the priesthood of the believer, that as a follower of Christ, as a born-again Christian, that we have direct access to God. I don't have to pray to a priest or ask him to pray for me. That has been a core tenet of that denomination since its very inceptions, when John Smith and these other great men came from Holland to the United States, is this idea, this autonomy of the believer, autonomy submitted to the master himself, but as a standalone congregation, we answer to each other and to God. There is no vertical hierarchy above us where one day I get a call and I'm told I'm now moving to Midland to go pastor that church. And so that's always resonated with me. Maybe that's because I'm a 5th or 6th generation Texan, and that just kind of sits well with me, this idea. And then thirdly, that part of, to me, that, baptism by its very definition, a very evangelistic denomination, sharing the gospel, hopefully such that men and women and young people respond and are baptized as a symbol of the spiritual transformation that's taken place. What are people looking for? Part two of your question. I think in today's world, people are looking for hope. This is a hopeless generation.
I think that's huge.
People, we could talk for hours about all the reasons to feel hopeless and to feel as though there really is no meaning. But I think even within, whether it's our Baptist church, whether it's the beautiful Hill Country Bible Church or our Methodist friends or Presbyterian friends, I think that men and women of Dripping Springs, they are so mentally and emotionally crushed by this world today. I really do see people coming in, and essentially what they're asking is, tell me that there's reasons for hope, because this is wearing me out. I'm 14, I'm 24, I'm 54.
We see so much despair in the world nowadays.
Despair.
And searching, and young people right now, to be able to find something to believe in where you're not going to feel ostracized, and to have a safe space to go to share those. Yeah.
One of my questions, to piggyback on what Michelle just said, is that, and I see it a lot on social media, some younger people today just view religion as a business.
Mm-hmm.
And
the mega church business, prosperity.
You see it with the mega churches especially. But are you seeing that? And if you are seeing that, how are you working through that?
One of the beauties of this community that we live in is that, with just a little bit of exception, we really don't have a mega church or even a mega church mentality. There's a relational thing. Why do people stick, whether it's at my church or any others in the community? It's because of the personal touch. It's the relationship. I think we have probably the loneliest generation that I've ever been around.
I think that's true.
Right now. And it's not just 15-year-olds. It's 35, 45, 55-year-olds who think they're connected because they DM each other on social media,
or they very shallow connection.
They read each other's Facebooks.
We were just talking about that, were we?
Were you? Yeah. And so I really do think part of what the church has always offered, this is why I love this, we don't have to be something we're not. A well-run church, it's not a business in the sense that we're marketing and campaigning and selling product. We're focused on Christ and His Word, and we're in community with each other, carrying each other's burdens, doing what the Scripture says to bear each other's burdens, because I've never seen as many isolated people. I don't have the right words for it right now, but I know
it's a social media connection, don't you think?
Yeah.
That you feel like they feel like they're getting this superficial connection. Maybe they don't feel like it's superficial, but this connection through social media, but it's breaking bread and being in front of someone. That's why we do this podcast in person, because we want the authenticity of sitting across from somebody. And I see, like in my life, where what I was searching for when I was a young mother raising 3 kids, literally our church experience, and my kids all grew up in the church, it was about filling what they needed at that moment. That's what fulfilled me. I wanted my children to know the Word of God and to grow up into that, to get that good foundation. And as we got older, we had to try to discover, okay, is it the social aspect? Okay, now do we need to go to this church for one child because this is where the majority of her friends are going? And now do we need to, I have the non-social butterfly that needs to come over here and just not be seen. And so I think it's going out and searching exactly what you feel like you need at that moment in your life. Yeah,
and that changes. And by the way, just to be clear, I am not a critic of the mega church. So I actually believe, it's not my original thought, Tim Keller once said this, that every major city needs one or more mega churches. They can do things that nobody else can do. I mean, it's a good thing that Austin has a couple of mega churches. They have an impact that my congregation could never have in some ways, so long as it is a healthy faithful, well balanced.
And the Word of God, and it's rooted in the Word of God. So you're not saying that if you were at a mega church, you'd be okay with being strapped and then flown in.
Yeah, no.
Have you seen those with like the pomp and circumstance?
I was going to
production?
ask you a bunch of questions about how you decide what's good for the congregation and your job day to day. But what you just said, if Christ is the center, then every decision can be made what glorifies Christ. That sure makes your job a lot easier.
It really does. It really does. By way of analogy, Steve, just to take it a little bit further, one time I was kind of wrestling as a senior pastor, preaching now 50 times a year. It's like, wow, the problem with Sundays, it comes every 7 days. Yeah. And what are we going to do this summer? What are we going to do this fall? And I'm not that witty and I'm not that creative. There are some guys and some women out there that can just come up with amazing topical series, and they're edgy and they're cute and they're funny. And I'm like, that's exhausting to me. What I found, by way of analogy to what you said, is that so long as I'm preaching through a book of the Bible at the time, I never run out of quality information. Yeah. I never run out of content. So long as we stay connected with what is it that's going to bring glory and attention to God, and not me or First Baptist Church, we'll never run out. Yeah. We really do. It really is quite simple in some ways.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
If we put ourselves out of the equation.
Sure. Well, what do you say, and I'm going to assume this happens, you run into somebody at Pigpen or whatever, and they say, I'm thinking about going to your church. Does that ever happen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you say?
Say, come on. You're always welcome. Yeah. Come on. Say, come see us at 11 o'clock. I said it to some first-time guests just this past Sunday, that once we identified each other and started to have the conversation, Michelle may remember me saying this back in our Bannockburn days together, but I said, listen, give us 3 tries. Mm-hmm. Today could be the worst Sunday we ever have. Right. It could be the best Sunday we ever have, or it could be just kind of right down the middle. Yeah. So, don't make a decision just based upon one visit. Uh-huh. But I think you're going to really feel at home here, and you're going to feel loved here. Yeah. But I also am really, really good friends with all of the senior pastors of the churches in this community. And so you're not going to hurt my feelings a bit if you end up somewhere else. Right. What I care about is that you end up somewhere
at a church. Yeah. I think that's been we did a little story on hometown missions, which started from a bunch of churches coming together. I think that's one of the cool things about this community is how all the churches support each other.
Well, founders.
Yep.
One church
service.
That was an amazing. I remember when it first started. Yeah. And having that one church right in front of the Masonic Lodge, it was just like, there was probably maybe 150 of us from all the churches.
And that was well over 1,000. Let me add to this too. When you think about the churches, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but every Thursday morning there is a standing breakfast for the pastors of the churches of Dripping Springs at El Rey Mexican Food Joint.
I didn't know that.
And if you can make it, you make it. If you can't, no, you're not hurting anybody's feelings. But we show up every Thursday morning, and over these years now, there's a core group of 6, 7, 8 pastors that on almost any given Thursday, they're going to be in that room. And it has moved well beyond talking about politics or football or weather or what's going on maybe in our community, where we really are brothers in Christ and are helping carry each other, encourage each other. Some Thursday may be my Thursday to say, man, I'm crushed. This week is killing me. Yeah. And these guys will pick me up. And sometimes it's my turn to be carrying somebody else. But I know a lot about a lot of the churches in the Central Texas area. There's really not anywhere else around where you see weekly denominational, non-denominational, startup pastors, guys that have been doing it for a long, long time here that come together truly as friends. Yeah. And it actually helps. So when what I thought you were going to ask me about Pigpen is what if somebody came up and said, I'm over at such and such church, but I'm not real happy there. I'm thinking about coming to visit you. Before they finish that sentence, I interrupt and I say, hey, you know what? I know Steve. He's one of my good friends. I love that church. Now, what were you going to ask me again? Yeah. Just to let them know right off the bat, we're not going to sit around and tolerate people talking badly
That's really
about
good,
the other
Clay.
pastors or the other churches.
Yeah, because that
for
stuff can
matters.
get a foothold and it's poison.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that you just cut that right off.
Just nip it.
Clay, when I was in my 20s, I went through this like little identity crisis. You know, I was out on my own.
I thought that was last week.
Well, it's on the weekly with Steve. It's on the weekly. But I really struggled, not necessarily in my faith, but about the questions that I had. I felt like I had so many questions that were even when I searched for the answers, I got even more confused than when I first started out. And I think when I hit my early 30s, I had this epiphany, and it was like, you know what? I'm really not meant to know all of the answers. And it led me to think about something for you. It's like, how or have you ever struggled in your faith? And when you are facing some crisis, some personal issue, that how do you redirect your mind, body, and spirit to go back to what you know is the pathway?
Yeah, short answer is yes. I think any thinking, believing person would be lying to you if they said they've never struggled with stuff. You see it in scriptures, where the great men and women of scriptures are struggling with, where are you, God? David asks over and over again. When a child is being buried by parents, when tragedy hits, when all these things occurred, one of many things I think about, Michelle's, that's a great question, is first off, I think, you know what? He's big enough to handle my questions. I'm not offending God because I ask, are you real? Where were you when this person was taken by cancer? How come you didn't seem to answer my prayers the way I expected them to be answered? My first response is, first off, he's big enough to handle all of that. So let's just be honest about it and ask these kinds of questions. In my own spiritual life, where it really got challenging for me is in some of the big, hard questions of life, when I would see something that, in my sense, seemed very unfair. That was a good man. Why did he get killed in that car wreck? Or that this woman, this neighbor of mine, is an amazing mom, amazing young wife and young married couple, and she has breast cancer and she's dead 2 years later, leaving little boys behind and a widowed husband in his 30s, you know, and so I don't apologize for it because I honestly do believe that, first off, he's big enough to handle our questions. Secondly, we've been all asking these questions for centuries. Thirdly, like I think you're saying in part, Michelle, is that he tells us what he's willing to tell us. He's revealed himself as he has chosen to reveal himself. And I am not the creator. I am his creation. And so if that's all he chose to tell me on this side of eternity, I'm going to have to just learn to deal with it. And that's hard. That's hard because in this knowledge-based world that we now live in.
We want to know everything. Yeah, we want to have the facts and the figures.
Yeah.
Somebody said once to me that when you're trying to explain that, sort of dumb that down, it's like we view life like we're looking through a straw, you know, and you just see little parts of what's going on, but God sees everything.
Yeah.
And that really helped me put it in perspective.
God doesn't have TikTok yet.
Not yet. Yeah. Hey, Clay, you remind me you're a little like a real estate agent in that you are probably on 24/7.
Yeah.
Oh.
How do you prevent yourself from being burned out? And I'm piggybacking on that. I'm good friends with David Skinner, who you know real well, and he was always saying, well, I got to go to this funeral and somebody had a baby and somebody's in the hospital and I got to write my sermon. And I thought, man, he's busy. How do you prevent yourself from getting burned out?
Yeah. Great question. And at times, you know, folks look at pastors like, oh, man, you're always on call. Yeah, that is true. We're always on call. Some of those calls aren't bad calls.
No,
hey, we just had a baby. Can I come celebrate and pray over you and your baby while you're still there at the hospital? That fills me up. That doesn't drain me. But the reality is, especially during the COVID years and immediately thereafter, pastoral burnout is a very, very, very real thing.
Got to be huge.
Part of it is a discipline of even taking a day. Is there an entire day where I did not work? I did not, you know, respond to an email. I saw text messages, but I'm not even going to touch them. in my earlier years, I went 24/7 every day of the week, and that's not healthy. That's not good. There is this Sabbath idea and notion where you need the rest. I've become a lot better. I'm not great at exercise. I wish I was better at it, but I'm becoming a lot better at disconnecting and getting away, even for a run to the ranch on Friday, because I got to go check some feeders. And that 12, 24-hour just kind of escape from it all, that actually helps. Even as a lawyer, I mean, the longest vacation I ever took was a week, and that was when I got married.
Oh yeah.
So my bent, my bias is not, man, I need 30 days or I need 90 days. Not that I turn them down, but but it's that weekly discipline of I will burn up. I'm not real good at it. I'm trying to get better about letting go of stuff. Yeah. And saying, hey, Michelle, can you grab this and run with it? Because I can't. I just can't handle the wisdom that I often lack and I'm always in need of is being able to identify those things where it really, really has to be me versus, come on now, you let your deacons go make that hospital visit or let that Bible study teacher make those calls and follow up. You don't have to be the center of every single thing.
Huge, yeah.
Well,
let some other people share their love.
It truly is a calling, though, too. And we were talking about it earlier about Sharon. This isn't just a you job. Yeah. She's the preacher's wife. Yeah. And she has always been actively involved in the church. So. And so that decision, I'm sure when you guys made the decision to kind of get out of law and do this full time as your calling, how did Sharon struggle with that? Not to speak for her, but how did Sharon struggle with, you kind of always being on in one sense?
So mixed bag. On the one hand, in those years leading up to my transition away from the law firm life, I couldn't come home and say, let me tell you about what my client told me today. Yeah. There was just this separation of that was downtown. And when I left downtown, we're done talking about, she didn't want to sit around and talk about my boring, lawsuits that I was working on. But as we talked more about going into ministry, it really was, this is a we thing. Yeah. Now I'm a number one fan of pastors' wives. I think there's a special place in heaven for these pastors' wives, and some of them choose to be kind of two for the price of one. You get us both, and that's my wife. I think my wife's bent is
it's Clay
right
and
now
Sharon.
As we speak. She's helping lead Vacation Bible School across the highway from us. As we speak this morning, she's up on the platform, dancing and bouncing and singing songs and teaching kids
and loving life
about the love of God. There are other pastors' wives who are like, you know what? My job is to be the greatest wife and mother I can be to help support this man, and I'll be a member. I'll show up on Sundays, and that is perfectly within. That's their prerogative. From my marriage and our relationship, we always dreamed about, how awesome it would be if we could work together.
Yes.
If we could do something where, hard part is, she's the very heartbeat of, in lots of ways, so many relationships at that church campus. When I think about burnout, I honestly think less about myself and more about my wife.
You guys are an amazing couple. It definitely is something to look to. And I am very honored in the sense that you kind of took my daughter under your wing and marriage counseled them and married Jacob and Kendall, and which I feel like it was such a great honor.
I saw a picture of her just the other day. I was flipping back looking for some picture for some reason, and there was a very young Kendall in my
Sassy Kendall
house. We were having a ministry night,
at your breakfast.
Student ministry. It was a nighttime. It was the nighttime. Doing movie night and buckets of popcorn and a bunch of teenage girls spread out all over the place. And there she was right in the middle of it. Things like that fill us up as a couple. That's not that draining. It's work. It's hard work at times. That doesn't drain us. Yeah. That doesn't drain us.
It was, I have to say from a 16-year-old, the mother of at the time, a 16, 17-year-old where, life was difficult in school. And I remember them going to your house on Friday mornings and having this like little breakfast and donuts and just kind of having some fellowship or just kind of getting their day started. Yeah. And that really meant the world to her. And it meant the world to me because nobody had ever really done that before. It was like, the pastor and that was them. They were on a pedestal, but you guys opened your home and your hearts to these kids. And you really have made a tremendous amount of impact and
You know, I
difference to
know that
people.
there's some real estate expertise in the room.
You open the door, I think they're down the hallway.
Exactly. as we were leaving South Austin and shopping and thinking about where are we going to live now in this Dripping Springs, and I literally remember talking with my wife Sharon and praying about wouldn't it be awesome if we could find a house that isn't a parsonage per se, but could act like one.
Oh, yeah.
And so in the real estate terminology, we were thinking about, Lord, could there be something where we have some sort of entertainment space, whether that's a pool or a man cave or a big back porch, I don't know what, but something where the doors would always be open and it would be, this is an asset, this is the Lord's house and we'll use it just to benefit. Could there be maybe a big enough kitchen? Could there maybe be an office or something? If I don't know where I'm going to be office in those times. And I mean to the letter, to a T, as the house that we're currently living in popped up, I'm like, we're done. This is it.
Sold.
This is it. But it was it in the sense of we wanted a lot more than you typically would think an empty nest couple would want, but we wanted it to use it for ministry. So we've had people come and live with us. We've had dozens of teenagers eating out of my pantry, stealing all my Pop-Tarts.
That's the way it was at
Those
my
are
house.
good memories, though. Yeah.
But it's that, and the blessing at that time was that we could then bring in a Kindle. We could bring people in and say, open up my refrigerator.
Yeah.
You know, we're just people, and we love you. And if you want to steal all my Pop-Tarts, put them in your backpack.
I think the message sinks in a lot more when you have that relationship with somebody.
If
If you're just some, icon sitting up
totally.
in front of the church.
If I knew that Kendall could have packed her suitcase at some point and gone and lived with Clay and Sharon,
I don't think that would have lasted very long. Clay, I got my last question for you.
and then I have a rapid
and
fire.
then,
Yep.
and then Michelle's going to do her rapid fire.
Okay.
What keeps you up at night
Oh.
as being a head pastor? What do you worry about?
You know, wow, hard question. I worry about cultural Christians, so-called cultural Christians.
Define that.
I worry about the man or woman that's been coming into the room, coming into the congregation for years and years and years. They've checked off the box of attendance. They may even throw some money into the finance office or into the offering plates, but there's absolutely no connection in a personal relationship with Christ. They feel like they're, quote, doing the right things. As I go to church on Sundays. And so there's this outward, almost, not that they're trying to be a con man or a con woman. They're not trying to con people, but there's really just not that spark hadn't gone off where you see this difference in their eyes where you say, this is real.
Yeah.
I'm betting all of my eternity on the truth of what you're teaching us or reading to us about. I'm worried about it at Bannockburn. I'm worried about it at this church. I'm worried about it at really any congregation. I worry about that. And I do lie awake at night thinking, as I told you, all the pastors of all the various churches, we get together all the time. If every one of our congregations had standing room only on any given Sunday, we could maybe accommodate 10% of the Dripping Springs community. There are tens of thousands of men, women, and young people moving into this beautiful community who have no seemingly relationship with God or church at all. And a lot of them don't even feel like they need to.
Yeah.
Literally had a conversation earlier this week with somebody's like, you're not offering anything that I need.
Yeah.
I got it. I got a great house, got a great wife, got a great career. That type of, that worries me.
Yeah.
I lose sleep over that.
I could see that. That was a different answer than I was expecting, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah,
Machine gun time.
that was deep. Okay, rapid fire questions.
Come on.
Okay, what's your favorite potluck meal?
Oh, man.
And the Baptists are known for our potlucks.
I'm going to jump straight to dessert. Banana pudding. I mean, a Southern Baptist banana pudding.
Oh my gosh, that's the
on.
worst dessert on the
It's
planet.
the best
Clay.
dessert.
Oh,
It's
terrible,
the best.
terrible.
Who has the better potlucks? Baptist, Methodist, Catholics, etc. Well, we know.
You know, I've only attended one all my life, so I'm going with Baptist on that one.
What's your favorite hymn?
Favorite hymn in Christ Alone.
Oh, that's a good one. What's the funniest thing a child has said or done in a service? You can think of something.
Man, just real quickly, if we're rapid firing, it wasn't that long ago. As a former lawyer, I ask oftentimes rhetorical questions It's part of just my preaching kind of style. And I had a particular child that would just verbally answer every time. I don't even remember the exact question and answer, but everybody in the room except that child understood. You're not supposed to say.
I bet he got some chuckles there, didn't he?
And it was an inappropriate. It was like, have you ever really just been really mad and just like almost hated your mother? And this child like, yes. It's like, son, you weren't supposed to answer that. Yeah.
What's the most unusual place you've either given a prayer or a blessing?
I had the privilege one time of praying and helping baptize a person in intensive care.
Oh.
That was cool.
Wow.
That was really, really cool. Changed my whole view of how much water must we use for baptism.
Oh, yeah.
When somebody's on their deathbed in intensive care unit.
The full immersion. Wow.
But that was a really cool moment.
Wow.
Who is your religious hero? And you can't say Jesus.
You know what? My religious hero, my father. My father, before there was no book that taught him how to be a spiritual leader in a home. There was no men's ministry conference. There was no Promise Keepers. There was no focus on the family. He was a young believer and a young father. And somehow or another, I believe in a God-inspired way, he set a great example for like morning devotionals. Before we went off to 5th grade, he was reading a little scripture to us and asked, what prayer request do you have? And I didn't know how to answer that.
What amazing
question.
legacy
But
he left.
my dad's my spiritual hero.
That's really cool.
Okay, so here's the last question. Then we're going to have you do something unusual we've never had anybody do before. But if you could put one and only one of the 10 commandments on a big billboard here in Dripping Springs, which one would it be?
Wow. Well, you've always got to go with you should, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul. So yeah, that, but I'm thinking more of kind of the negative commands of things. You know what? If we all just told the truth, it'd be amazing what this world could look like.
Oh, I don't know. Michelle might hurt my feelings a lot.
Well, she has been working for a long time on being full of truth and grace.
Full of.
I think if we could
grace
see
and truth.
inside her head, we'd be in trouble, man. I think there's things floating around in there that people
Wasn't there
would
a
be
Jim
crying.
Carrey movie about that?
I think there was.
Liar,
It even
liar.
scares me sometimes.
Yeah.
It even scares me. Clay, I would be so honored if unusual, I know, and going to the unusual places, if you would close us out with a prayer for Dripping Springs.
Hey, I'd be honored to.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Father, first off, we pause and we say we love you and we praise you and we adore you. Thank you for the leadership in this very room and the amazing work that Steve and Michelle do. And I know, Father, all three of our hearts beat strongly for Dripping Springs and this beautiful community. As it changes every week, as it changes every month and year. Father, would you keep our hearts soft for the new people that come into this community? Would you draw them close to you? Lord, I do pray for the churches of Dripping Springs and the men and women that currently are active in the various churches of our community, that we would be beacons of light and love, help folks, whether they're coming from California or just from the other part of Austin out to this land, that you would help us to reflect you well and to show your love and your mercy to everybody that we come into contact with. Father, wouldn't it be amazing if Dripping Springs could do something so different where we become known for the love and grace and mercy that we demonstrate even to strangers in our very midst? That's a big prayer request, Father. Would you help us in that regard? And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Clay.
that privilege.
Thank you for coming in, Clay. It's
Thank
really
you.
a lot of fun. I
Great
enjoyed
day.
getting to know you.
Likewise.
All right, thanks for listening, everybody. Ready to turn your land dreams into reality? Look no further than Capital Farm Credit.
Need a loan for your perfect piece of land? Capital Farm Credit is there for you.
Their dedicated team will tailor a loan to fit your unique needs because your dreams are their priority.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit capitalfarmcredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender.
Nomic Power Solutions, keeping you powered up.
Get to know your local full-service Generac dealer.
Cody and Dylan with Nomic Power Solutions are a veteran-owned, Texas-based Generac dealer and installer.
Offering low monthly payment options, it's never been easier to gain independence from the grid.
Call or text 512-387-4232 or visit nomicpower.com. Follow on Instagram at Nomic Power for updates.
Turnkey service including design, plumbing, electrical, and permits.
They even offer set it and forget it maintenance plans. Nomic Power Solutions.
Protect your home. Protect your family. Stay ready. Elevate your living experience with M. Elliott Studio, your trusted partner in interior design, registered and licensed by the state of Texas.
You want your home to reflect your personal style and identity. Investing in a well-crafted design doesn't just beautify your home, it enriches your life.
Team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, understands the profound impact of a thoughtfully designed space. From remodeling to full design, M. Elliott Studio is the first step to unlocking your style.
Turn your aspirations into reality. Tailored to your taste and desires, M. Elliott Studio will work to create an environment that embraces your style with style.
Your space, their expertise.
melliotstudio.com 512-781-0224.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallet Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at malletintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at malletandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.